you need to know why you have dark circles to know how to get rid of your dark circles.
You're not about to go on this flight, sis. I was interrogated for just under 2 hours.
Hey guys, my name's Hani. If you're new here, I make videos on skincare. I'm also a doctor. And yeah, that is basically why I've been away for so long. I've been in my flop era. Been working hard, getting the bag, but essentially I'm back. I've also been, if you're like if you're an OG, you know that I've been starting a skincare line for people of color. That is also something that is definitely something I'm still doing, but it is such a time drain. It takes up all of your time. My job is also super like grueling and arduous time-wise anyway, so between those two things, your girl kind of fell off. I've not really been about, but I'm back. So without further ado, I want to talk about why you've not been able to get rid of your dark circles. I feel like this is a video that people keep asking me to make, and like I want to do a lengthy kind of unpack of why you have dark circles, which I think is the kind of the key way to be able to address your dark circles. You need to know what's causing them. So in this video, expect a very systematic and focused explanation on the different causes of dark circles, which one applies to you, and what you need to do to get rid of them. The first thing you want to figure out is basically, were your dark circles inherited or were they acquired? Now what I mean by that is, were you born with these dark circles or have you acquired them over the course of your life? So a very easy way to figure this out is if you just take, if you look at childhood photos of yourself, did you always have dark circles? Or is it something you noticed as you got older, hit puberty, that sort of thing? Or, you know, when you get tired, or you've hit a certain stage in your life where you've now realized your dark circles are much worse. It could also be a bit of both, where you had maybe some basis of dark circles, but they've gotten worse as you've gotten older. And essentially, as I said, easy tell, just look through some old photos. So the reason I say this is because if you have inherited dark circles, which is often the case if loads of people in your family have dark circles, you had dark circles as a child, while these tips are still going to be useful, I think it's really important to also kind of manage expectations. And it's likely that you will have some degree of dark circles that kind of, you know, persist despite your efforts, and that's fine. I think we really need to dismantle this idea of like glass skin, super perfect skin. Imperfect skin is perfect. Do you know what I mean? Like there's no, perfection is almost like unnatural. It's not something that's like innate to us, and I don't think it's something that we derive any benefit from in trying to achieve. And I think actually we need to kind of dismantle some of the really harsh and exacting standards we have for ourselves. Like it doesn't benefit us. I think we need to be more kind to ourselves, and also dark circles often look really nice, like, you know, little grungy, fashiony, smudged eyeliner looking moment. Like I don't always think it's a bad thing. So that's the first thing I want to say. But regardless, nonetheless, even if that is you and you have inherited genetic dark circles, there's still some things you can do to help with that. The second category that I was talking about is acquired dark circles, so dark circles that you've acquired over the course of your life. And there could be a few different causes of acquired dark circles, but I'm going to go into the kind of big categories that you're most likely to fall into. So the first one I would say is hormones. So female hormones are very, very, very strongly associated with hyperpigmentation. They've done loads of studies. They've done in vitro studies in labs where they prove that essentially just estrogen, which is obviously the female sex hormone, stimulates in vitro melanogenesis, meaning estrogen literally stimulates the pigment producing cells called melanocytes to produce more melanin. And that's why in stages where your body is having, in periods where your body is kind of acquiring more hormones, so such as like puberty and pregnancy, that's when people's hyperpigmentation kicks in. Melasma, which is one of the kind of key causes of hyperpigmentation in pregnant women, is literally called the mask of pregnancy. So there's a very strong association with female sex hormones and hyperpigmentation. And the first thing that you need to do for that is to correct any kind of hormonal imbalance that may be there. Visit your doctor. There's loads of conditions that are associated with hormonal imbalances, so things like polycystic ovarian syndrome, obviously being pregnant, but also things like hormonal contraception. And if that is you, so if you're on hormonal contraception and you're really suffering with like a worsening of your dark circles, or like pigmentation in other parts of your face or body, I think it would definitely be worth speaking to a doctor about non-hormonal contraception and that sort of thing if that applies to you. I think also in general there would be other tells if your hormones are kind of not doing what they're meant to. if you're someone who gets a period, then if you're missing periods or your periods are coming too frequently, if you're developing body hair in places or facial hair in places that you don't ever normally get facial hair or body hair, that's another sign that your hormones are just not really doing what they need to do. And if that's the case with you, you need to go to a doctor, and you will actually see a remarkable improvement in your pigmentation if it's produced by a hormonal imbalance. So that's that on that. So if you do have inherited hyperpigmentation where you were kind of just born with it, or if you have pigmentation around your eyes from UV exposure or hormonal exposure, as well as limiting your UV exposure by using sunscreen, as well as kind of managing your hormones by using hormonal, non-hormonal contraception, going to the doctor, getting a blood test, as well as, so we kind of spoke about if you have inherited hyperpigmentation, that's probably unfortunately just because you were born with it to a degree, but I said obviously there's some things you can do, which I'm about to outline. This also applies to people who have pigmentation around their eyes from UV exposure. Obviously you're going to use the sunscreen, but what else can you do? Similarly, if your pigmentation around your eyes is largely due to hormones, yes, you're going to get your hormones in check, but here are some other things you can do essentially. So I've spoken about this in great detail in my hyperpigmentation video. I keep referencing it only because I think it's like a very good exposition on the root causes and what to do on pigmentation in general, whereas this video focuses on the eyes. But just in summary, if you kind of don't want to watch that video or you just want the spark notes, basically there's two classes of product that will help shift your pigmentation, whatever the cause, be it hormonal, be it UV, as well as treating the cause of those, so using sunscreen and kind of managing your hormone levels. You also can be doing these things to minimize to reduce the pigmentation around your eyes. So those are going to be using a class of ingredients called tyrosinase inhibitors. Tyrosinase is an enzyme. Essentially, there's an enzyme that breaks tyrosine into melanin, which is what causes your pigmentation. Tyrosinase inhibitors are products that inhibit that breakdown of tyrosine into melanin. Essentially, if you use tyrosinase inhibitors, they stop melanin being made. And things that are in that class of ingredient are things like kojic acid, alpha-arbutin, vitamin C, which is also known as ascorbic acid, and azelaic acid. So those are all tyrosinase inhibitors. They're all one class of chemical that is in a lot of skincare that essentially stops the chemical reaction that even makes melanin in the first place. And so that inhibits the overproduction of melanin that creates dark circles. So that's one key class of ingredients that whatever applies to you in this video, whatever method you think applies to you, whatever you end up doing, this is always something that can supplement getting rid of your dark circles. The other class of kind of active ingredient that you want to use in skincare to help with this are things that essentially speed up turnover of the skin. So products that help your skin shed and renew faster. And so I'm going to split these into two. I'm going to split these into AHAs, alpha hydroxy acids, and then retinoids. Alpha hydroxy acids are essentially like chemical exfoliants. They're acids that basically slough off, like get rid of the top layer of the skin and help the new skin come forth. So if you've now like patterned your hormonal imbalance, if you've patterned your mineral deficiency, whatever it is that you kind of fixed, your allergies, whatever it was that was causing your pigmentation, if you've now put that to bed, the new skin can come to the surface sooner if you're using these class of ingredients. So alpha hydroxy acids are acids that essentially take off the top layer of skin, and then you can kind of see your results faster. Things in that category would be things like glycolic acid, mandelic acid, lactic acid. I'll leave some examples of such products in the description. The other class of ingredient that you're looking for in skincare is retinoids. I'm gonna make a whole video on this, quite complex. Essentially, these are vitamin A derivatives that again speed up the turnover of skin. They essentially help you get to the new skin faster. So if you're now treating your skin really well, you can get rid of that old skin that was super pigmented and maybe a bit uneven faster, and you can it enables you to get the new fresh skin that you've been looking after to come through sooner. That's a very kind of a roundabout explanation. I can go into a lot more detail. Just let me know what kind of videos you guys want to see. Just let me know. I'm very happy to make more videos, and I think I will make a video on retinoids regardless. Okay, so the next one is, and I've spoken about this at length in my hyperpigmentation video. If you haven't watched, I'm gonna put a link in the description, watch that. But basically, this one is kind of a key detail. UV exposure causes melanin production, increased melanin production. Like, it is as simple as that. It does it in two ways. So one of the ways it does it is UV stimulates the pituitary gland, which is a gland in your brain, and it tells it to make a hormone called melanocyte stimulating hormone that produces melanin. That was complicated. I'm going to explain that again. Essentially, the sun tells your brain to stimulate the hormone that produces the pigment in your skin that's causing your dark circles. So essentially you want to minimize excess UV exposure to the skin, and so one of the ways you can do that, in fact the key way to do that, is to use sunscreen. And I know a lot of people aren't using sunscreens around their eyes because it stings and it burns. Use a physical sunscreen. That is my answer to you. So chemical sunscreens, yes, they do sting and burn around the eyes, but you need to, the best sunscreen is the sunscreen that you will use. Find the one that works for you, find one that doesn't sting around your eyes, or one that you're happy to use, or one that isn't watery and won't get in your eyes, and use that on the skin around your eyelids. The skin around your eyes is extremely thin, so even more sensitive than other skin to kind of changes in sunlight and UV exposure. So that's like something that's really key. So I also realized I only mentioned one way that UV causes melanin production. So obviously it stimulates that gland in the brain and tells it to make more melanin. So UV also directly acts on the melanocytes, which are the cells that produce melanin, and literally tells them to make melanin directly. So it's twofold. It's UV, the sunlight, tells the brain to produce a hormone that makes melanin, but that same sunlight also directly acts on the cell itself and tells it to make more melanin. So minimizing sunlight exposure is absolutely essential. Things like wearing caps and wearing sunscreen around your eyes is very important. So just find a sunscreen that you can tolerate around your eyes. Which also, actually, while I'm here, is obviously makes sense, because people literally sit in the sun to get a tan. That same thing is happening to the skin around your eyes. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, we're not reinventing the wheel here. Like, I think it's one of those things that's so obvious that we just choose to ignore that detail. But just think about people sitting in the sun and getting a tan, and just think about the circles around your eyes essentially going through that same process. Just reflect on that for me. So this next cause is one that I think is probably underdiagnosed and actually probably much more common than people realize. And this is the #1 kind of bane of my life in terms of just getting random pigmentation on my face, eyes and body, and that is allergies. So a lot of people don't realize, but having low level allergies to things in your environment, that could be food, that could be things like dust, things like pollen, can be a massive cause of hyperpigmentation. I'm going to tell you exactly how allergies cause hyperpigmentation. This is something that affects me literally every single day. In fact, I would say it's the #1 reason I'm ever having to do like my own hyperpigmentation routine. It's always treating pigmentation caused by allergies and reactions. And how to know if this applies to you: if you're the kind of person that is like a bit sniffly, often gets eczema, hay fever, watery eyes, if you're that runny nose, if you're that kind of person, this probably applies to you. Like, soz to break it to you, but that was kind of how I realized it in myself. So the process is that when your body's irritated by a substance in your environment, it could be like something in food that you're a bit allergic to, or just a bit of dust, or your hay fever or eczema, it causes your mast cells, which is a type of white blood cell, to release something called histamine. Histamine is essentially like the allergy chemical, and if your body is reacting to anything in your environment, it will produce histamine. And you've definitely seen that reaction. It's basically where you get like, if you know when you feel itchy and you scratch it and then you get a rash and it looks a bit red, that process you're seeing, that allergic inflammation, is because of your body producing loads of histamine, which is essentially the allergy chemical. And what you normally do is you take antihistamines, right? You take those allergy tablets that essentially prevent your body producing histamine. Why do I keep saying histamine? I promise the answer lies slightly beyond where I am now. Histamine literally stimulates melanocytes to produce melanin. Like, once again, the melanocytes really just get triggered by anything and everything. Histamine is one of those things. So minimizing your allergy, minimizing your histamine production, minimizing your inflammation. So that's the first way. And you know, they don't actually know why histamine causes melanogenesis, but they know it does. Histamine causes melanocyte production. It's been observed in studies, in labs. It's been reproduced in multiple papers. They don't know why, but we know it happens. And you've probably defo seen that. You know, if you get like eczema, obviously not everyone gets this, but if you get eczema or a rash, even when it goes, sometimes you're often left with a bit of a mark. That could be happening low level all the time in your eyes, and the skin around your eyes is constantly actually having low level allergic reactions. I'm going to include a picture of allergic shiners, which is kind of the high pigmentation you get when you have allergies. I actually personally, unfortunately, get this quite often. And I'll tell you the second way now also that having low level allergies cause hyperpigmentation. It's the rubbing. Yeah, when your eyes feel a little bit itchy, what do? You go in for a good old rub. Now, what does that do? That causes pigmentation in two ways as well. So the first thing it does is when you rub your eyes, you essentially create micro kind of breaks in the blood vessels, and when they leak blood into the surrounding tissue around your eyes, the iron from the blood, which is quite grey-brown, deposits in the skin. And because the skin is so thin, and translucent, you can often almost see that. So we were talking about how rubbing your eyes causes pigmentation, and I'm going to give you the tea as well. I'm going to give you some proof. So essentially, when you rub your eyes, it creates local inflammation, which produces more histamine, which then causes pigmentation, because we spoke about how histamine induces melanin production. So if you're a Muslim and you know people who pray regularly, you will know that lots of Muslims, especially older Muslims, will have a brown circle on their forehead. Not even brown, I would even say like a grey brown circle. I'm gonna insert a picture here. So for the non-Muslims and the people who aren't familiar with that Muslim prayer, essentially when you're praying, there's a motion where the top of your forehead will probably just essentially you put your forehead on the ground. I'm sure you've seen it. It's like the one scene they always depict when they're showing Muslim praying. It's where you basically just, let me even insert a picture. I'm doing a lot right now. Let me even insert a picture. So essentially that contact of your forehead with the carpet, probably at most per prayer, with a minute at most. And that's happening 5 times a day. So 5 minutes a day of just rubbing your forehead on the carpet causes pigmentation like this, to the point where there's literally a Wikipedia article. It's a thing. Friction causes pigmentation. Here's the evidence, yeah? So on that basis, rubbing your eyes once again, very closely associated with dark circles. So essentially, allergies, let's just give you a little summary. Allergies are causing pigmentation twofold. They directly induce histamine production. Histamine is the allergy molecule, and that directly stimulates melanocytes to produce melanin. But also B, having the allergies making you rub your eyes causes A, the blood vessels to leak iron deposits under the skin, which is often very thin already, and C, the friction of rubbing causes local inflammation, which then also causes histamine production, which then produces melanin. And then the evidence for that was Muslims literally praying and then getting a mark on their forehead from the friction of their forehead with the carpet. The same process is happening on a local level to your eyes. So controlling your allergies is absolutely paramount. And how do you know what you're allergic to? Visit a doctor. I know this is the answer to everything. It might be biased because this is my job. But honestly, I think going to a doctor will be like super helpful in elucidating why you're having this pigmentation issue and helping you address it. So visit an allergy doctor or an allergy specialist. I did this, and what they do is, like, it's called wheel and flare testing. Essentially, they just prick lots of different substances under your skin and they see what you react to. Unfortunately, I literally reacted to basically everything. I'm going to insert a picture. And so, as you can see, I'm highly allergic, so I'm always rubbing my eyes. My eyes always feel a bit itchy, and so I know that's a big cause of the pigmentation around my eyes, which is why I've now really got that under control by managing my allergies. Obviously, the solution for managing your allergies is going to be different person to person. For myself personally, I've been advised by my doctor to take prophylactic antihistamines. So I mean, I take antihistamines every day on the advice of my doctor. I also take tablets occasionally called mast cell stabilizers. They're essentially tablets that stabilize the cell that produces histamine. It's going to be different person to person, but it's essentially really important to figure out if you're allergic to something in your food or in your environment, or if there's a cream or a product you're a little bit sensitive to, because if you can control your allergies, you can minimize the inflammation and histamine production around your eyes in a really, really big way. So that one, I cannot stress this enough, because this is the one that has literally like changed my life. How controlling my allergies has really helped control like my skin pigmentation in general. So I'm putting you guys on. One of the other causes of dark circles is, and this is quite a common one, it's just because of the skin around the eye being in shadow because of anatomical factors. And I'll tell you what the 2 anatomical factors are. Volume loss, so just natural kind of volume going away as you age. Like as you age, your body just doesn't produce as much collagen and elastin, things that keep the skin nice and plump. But also skin laxity, like I hate to say it, but your skin does get a little bit stretched out and droopier as you age. And so skin laxity, the skin being just a little bit saggy, and volume loss are both things that can cause the appearance of dark circles. Now, how do you know if that's what's happening to you? How do you know if it's because of these anatomical factors where you've either lost volume or your skin's a bit saggier? Well, what you can do is you literally just stretch. If you just stretch the skin out, with your hand, just stretch the skin of your under eye, and if the skin gets lighter or the darkness goes away, then you know there's just missing volume, right? And unfortunately, if this is the case with you, there's no kind of cream or peel or anything that's going to correct that. The only real thing you can do is correct the volume loss, and there's a few ways to do this. And if it's an issue with skin laxity, where the skin is just a bit saggy and that's what's giving the appearance of dark circles, you would need to kind of address that. So I'll tell you a few things that are kind of on the card. So one of the obvious ones is under eye filler, so dermal fillers. And I'm going to do a whole separate video on this actually, because fillers right under the eye, there's kind of an anatomical reason that they don't really work. I watched a really informative video on it, and I've been doing some reading, and I just don't really think it's the answer. But essentially, if you can inject fillers into the upper cheek, you can essentially fill out that depression and give the appearance of, well, essentially get rid of the dark circles, because the skin's not going to be in shadow anymore. You've replaced that loss of volume. Another way to replace that loss of volume is, and I would not do this at home, this is not advice for do at home, this is go to a professional. Microneedling is where a professional will use a tool that has lots of tiny sterilized needles to make little pricks under the eye, and in doing so, that essentially gets the skin to think it suffered some trauma, and then that kind of kickstarts the skin's natural healing processes, which stimulate the production of more collagen and elastin, which are the things that keep the skin under your eyes bouncy, supple, elastic, kind of stretchy. All the things that you want to replace lost volume are reproduced by getting your skin to think it's injured essentially, and encouraging all of the fibroblasts, the cells that produce collagen, to do so. Obviously you're not going to see as dramatic results as using a filler, but I'm going to insert a picture. You can see the results can be actually really effective. I would not recommend that's something you do at home at all by yourself. It's just way too easy to give yourself an infection by not sterilizing the needles, or causing real kind of significant damage by using needles that kind of go too deeply. Like, absolutely just go to a professional. So that's that on volume loss. If your issue is skin laxity, where the skin is just a little bit droopy or a little bit saggier as we age, the only real answer, I'm sorry once again, is surgical. So there's a procedure called a blepharoplasty, where a surgeon will essentially cut the excess skin, muscle or fat, or sometimes all three, away just to create a lifted look. And it's actually a very common procedure in some parts of the world, but I'm going to insert a picture just so you can see how, if that's the case with you, where you've got some skin laxity, your skin's just sagging a little bit, how it can actually do an amazing job of getting rid of your pigmentation around your eyes, if that's the cause. So this next one is something that happened, well, it was not something that happened to me, it's something I was worried about happening to me because I did this thing, and that thing was using lash serums. There are a lot of lash serums that are really amazing. They grow your lashes, they make them really long and dark and wonderful, and they actually, like, I can say hand on heart, they actually work amazingly. I've never had my eyelashes complimented so much. And these are eyelash serums that are derived from an active ingredient that was historically used to treat glaucoma. Glaucoma is basically like an eye illness. When people who had this eye disease, glaucoma, they noticed that when they use their eye drops, because essentially people with glaucoma, they have like raised pressure in the eye, they would use eye drops to lower the eye pressure. They noticed the side effect of their eyelashes would just grow really quickly and really thickly and darkly. And obviously, capitalism being what it is, people were like, let's figure out what's in glaucoma eye medicine to make people's eyelashes grow so quickly and thickly. And essentially they extracted this active ingredient. So there's a couple that are used in serums. There's latanoprost and there's bimatoprost. They're essentially what is used in glaucoma medicine, and that's the active ingredient that's making your eyelashes longer. And so you can get lash serums that you basically, it looks like eyeliner, you paint it on your eyelid before you sleep, just where the lash line is, and your eyelashes, honestly, they do just grow so quickly and so fast. And I benefited from this for some time, but sadly, unfortunately, if this is also you and you also use these serums, they're associated with darkening of the eyelid margin where you apply it, and also darkening of the iris. So there's been loads of cases of people with like blue or green eyes just noticing that the color of the eyes is literally just darker. And they've essentially proven that the key ingredient causes pigmentation of the eyelid, but also pigmentation of the iris, which is the colored part of the eye. So you literally get two things basically like giving you pigmentation around the eye. One, the serum itself causes darkening of the skin around the eye, but as well as that, it also causes periorbital fat atrophy. So the fat cells around the eye literally die off, and so you also get pigmentation caused by volume loss. So it's pigmentation caused by literal pigmentation of the skin, and then pigmentation caused by volume loss. There's more of a shadow because you've lost some of the fat around your eye. Essentially, after that, I just thought, fake eyelashes exist. There's no reason for me to be just getting permanent eye changes however mild. I just thought there's literally no reason. They have lash extensions, they have cluster lashes, they have strip lashes. There's really no reason for me to be going through this. So yeah, I had to stop that. Unfortunately, obviously it was super convenient having like just really nice long eyelashes. My eyelashes are just naturally quite straight, so I was enjoying that for a bit, but yeah, just not worth it. So if you're someone who uses lash serums and you've noticed some pigmentation around your eyes, just have a think of how much do you want long eyelashes. There's a lot of really great alternatives to use. I'm gonna wrap this video up by giving you kind of one last reason that people get pigmentation around the eyes. It's something that's probably more common than we realize, again, and often ignored: mineral deficiencies. I just mean if you have essential vitamins and minerals in your diet that are very closely associated with having like pigmentation of the skin. The two minerals that are especially implicated with pigmentation around the eyes are iron and magnesium. Super easy to figure out if you're deficient in these. Literally go to your doctor to get a blood test, just find out what your iron level is, what your magnesium level is, and if you are deficient, supplement appropriately. It's just something that's very, very easy and very straightforward to do, and I think often ignored. I think, not to say you are what you eat, but you kind of are. Do you know what I mean? Like if you're missing things in your diet, if you're missing essential vitamins and minerals that are kind of necessary for your body's functioning, it will manifest in some way or another, and maybe your dark eye circles are one of those things that's happening. Thank you so much for watching this video. I feel like it's going to be quite a lengthy one. I hope it's useful nonetheless. Please let me know what other videos you'd like to see. I think I'm back now on YouTube. I've got a team, you know, we came back bigger and better than ever. Like, I do really love explaining things. Like, I literally worked as a tutor for like 6 years. I think I'm quite good at it. I've suffered through a lot of these issues myself. I just want to share what I've learned. So if that's something that you want to see more of as well, please just do leave me a comment telling me what kind of videos you'd like to see. I'll do my very best to respond. I'm also going to leave the mailing list for the skincare line I'm going to be launching soon in the description bar. So please, you know, join the mailing list, follow the Instagram at Hue by Dr. Hani, show some support. I'd be very grateful. Also, if you could like and comment and subscribe, that would be wonderful. And yeah, thank you so much. Really appreciate your time. I hope this was educational and beneficial, and let me know what other content you'd like to see. Bye everyone.